Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another show of the Beginner's Mind, wherein we follow the Zen philosophy of putting aside everything that you know and being a beginner once again, even if you are an expert in your field. That's the whole philosophy behind this interview series, wherein I invite experts from different fields, from different parts of the world who've had different career trajectories. We invite them in to hear from them so we can suspend our judgment and learn from them. And our guest today is the MD of Strategy for Accenture, Mr. Vikrant Viniak. Please welcome him with a virtual round of applause. Thank you, Vikrant, for taking out the time to join us for this conversation today. I'll briefly introduce you to the audience. You're a regular speaker at tech, big data, and AI conferences in North America, but that is not going to be the subject of our discussion today. You are a leader in the high-tech industry, of course, the MD at Accenture Strategy for North America, with over 18 years of experience in strategic cost reduction. Areas of expertise include zero-based methodology, robotic process automation, digital transformation, blockchain, and AI. And apart from excelling in technology, Vikrant is also deeply, passionately committed to developing people, mentoring, and coaching. And I believe this is what has drawn you to this conversation here today. He's been a trusted advisor to C-suite clients and coached more than 300 executives in driving and managing successful transformations. He's an avid runner and a biker who loves people and technology and believes in going the extra mile, especially when it comes to nurturing and developing leaders for the future. How are things, Vikrant? Thank you for joining. And how are things in Chicago, Illinois?
Yeah, Simer, first of all, thank you for inviting me to this forum. And things are pretty good. We are starting to feel a sense of normalcy a little bit. Vaccination is going really good. Things have picked up. Me and my family are vaccinated. So knock on wood, very fortunate about that. But my heart goes out to my family in India. I know things in India are not that good. How are things there in Jalandhar?
Well, not good at the moment. That's all I can say. And I can say a silent prayer as we start this conversation today. I can say a silent prayer. We can say a silent prayer together for everyone who's suffering right now through these very difficult circumstances. It's not only COVID-19, it's also been the additional burden on the healthcare system, which is not proved sufficient for the needs of the people at the moment. Lack of oxygen, lack of beds. So very difficult times for a lot of people that I know personally. Our heart goes out to them and we say a silent prayer for the recovery. We will bounce back. I believe we will bounce back. This too shall be over soon. It'll be behind us. And I've always believed, Vikrant, that the darkest hour of the night is always before dawn. So dawn is just around the corner and we just got to hang in there and be strong. Thank you. Vikrant, you're an expert in AI and big data and all these future trends. Tell us, are robots going to take our jobs anytime soon?
That is what I hear from many people, that robots are going to take over jobs soon. My perspective is that as humans, we need to be focusing more on ingenuity, innovation, and creativity.
Wow.
And some of the mundane work, we need to let the robots do that. And that's where I believe the world is headed, where we have more time for ourselves. We have more time to think, create, and innovate, and automate some of the things that are very mundane in our day-to-day life.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, and I believe that's been the course that human evolution has followed over the last several thousand years. Every time we'd come up with something breakthrough, and first of all, we've been threatened by it. Electricity, for example, internet then, and space travel and so on. We've been threatened by that new breakthrough discovery at first because it challenges the status quo, and then we discovered as we went along, this frees up our time from what automation experts call the 3Ds, the dull, dirty, and dangerous jobs, so that machines can do it. So we human beings, as you rightly said, can focus on creativity, innovation, ingenuity, and so many other things that you're talking about. So it comes to, you're right at the top of the high-tech industry, blockchain, AI, automation. You're consulting leaders on business transformation. Accenture is in the business of improving businesses, other businesses for the better. But also there's a huge focus from your side on good old-fashioned people-centric coaching and mentoring and people development. Talk to us about your love for technology and love for people.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you asked that question because I believe the human ingenuity and technology are so intertwined right now because technology is in everything we do in our life. From the moment we wake up, the first thing we grab is our phones. We scan phones for messages, we scan for phones for news, we are staying connected. There are pros and cons to that. So my love for technology and human ingenuity is what kind of I feel the intersection that I operate today in high tech is, of both. Because I work with clients who are looking to take that human ingenuity to the next level, either through their products or serving their customers. And it's the people in these organizations that actually enable that technology forefront. So that's what I feel. I feel this is where us as leaders have to act very different. The world we are in, we have to be very empathetic because people won't respect you if you're not empathetic.
True.
We need to show courage to make decisions for our people, courage to adopt the new technology, the courage to go, as Star Trek used to say, to go to the frontiers where no man has gone before.
Absolutely.
Courage to go to those frontiers.
Well, what Elon Musk is trying to do, and I think their team deserves a huge round of applause at SpaceX. I think yesterday was the first successful test landing of the Starship, they call it, the huge rocket that is supposedly going to make human beings a multi-planetary species, going to take us to Mars, right?
That is correct. That is correct. And Tesla and SpaceX and the Boring Company, I think they are continuing to push the new frontiers. As I'm a proud owner of a Tesla, and I enjoy the vehicle very much.
I'm jealous now.
Features.
Right.
And,
no, fantastic. Now, since you mentioned a lot about leadership, a lot of people development, and also allowing human ingenuity and innovation and creativity to flourish, what do you think are the top factors, as you work with so many organizations, what do you feel are the top factors that allow creativity and innovation to flourish in an organization, or that sort of suppress it? What do great leaders do in order to bring ideas to the front very quickly and execute them? And what do mediocre leaders do to ignore powerful ideas? Because every organization, I believe, has wonderful ideas. There's people, especially at the grassroots level, all the time their mind is coming up with things, how they can improve the organization and improve their day-to-day life. But I believe the culture has a huge role to play. Would you speak to us about that, please?
Absolutely, and it all starts with the culture. The culture, there is a phrase used, fail fast. So the culture should be fail fast culture, where you are giving people an opportunity to try something and either succeed or fail. But failure does not mean that you have failed. Failure means that now you're going to try a different way to do the same thing. And as you asked me about the leaders, I talked about courage. I talked about empathy. I think we also have to lead by example, because they take, for example, fail fast. As leaders, if we don't show to our, people, our organization, that we believe in and we are acting in that manner, that we are taking the risk and we don't mind failing and doing it again, people will follow us. And we need to be sincere in that effort. We need to have the passion for that. And cultures where you don't see, sincerity, passion, empathy, leading by example, those are the cultures where you actually see that companies don't thrive. Another key thing in this environment is empowerment. As a leader, you must be very comfortable that your team is going to get the spotlight. And actually, I always identify, whenever I take on a new role, I've reinvented myself every few years at Accenture. I've been here 14 and a half years.
That's great. You teach reinvention and transformation.
That's right. That is right. It's personal reinvention, goes hand with that reinvention of the business.
It should,
So I always identify my potential replacement whenever I take on a new role or a new team.
Wow. Because that takes courage.
Exactly. And that allows me to have a set of people I can mentor and set them up to succeed when I move on to something new. And I think that's another element that leaders need to exhibit to make sure that their job is successful.
I'm so glad you brought that up. There's two things that come to my mind to add on to what you're saying here. One is the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, who said, if you want to succeed for a year, grow crops. If you want to succeed for 20 years, grow trees. You want to succeed for 100 years, grow people. And I think the third thing, because it's so long term, growing people because it's so long term, so out there. We cannot see the results of it immediately. A lot of corporations, societies, companies, families, homes, we overlook that. We sort of ignore it. We go for what gives us an immediate benefit. Okay, let's do this today. Let's increase profits. Let's do this. Let's do that. But we forget, we overlook that at the core of all human development is people, right? So machines, there's a lot going on about machine learning and AI and so many other things, but I still believe it's human innovation and human creativity who's going to put these machines to work and achieve breakthroughs for some of the major problems that we're facing today. And also, I love what you spoke about empathy. I think Stanford's design school, when they talk about at the D school in Stanford, when they talk about the design thinking, at the heart of design thinking is empathy. Do you care about who is going to use this and what is the experience of that individual? And empathy changes everything. Thank you for bringing those valuable additions in this conversation, Vikrant.
And Simer, if I may add to, you mentioned about design thinking. I'm very fortunate that I've been working at Accenture. Fjord Studio, which is one of the companies we acquired, they pioneered design thinking. And
interesting.
We have actually embedded design thinking into everything we do as we deliver the client value. And we want to make sure that you talk about people development. Those are some of the skills we impart to our teams, so the teams are developing and growing. And I think the other thing I would say is, you touched upon that earlier, like how do you create that culture where innovation thrives? I think the workforce is changing. And let me address that, how that is changing.
Please.
When I look at the Gen Z and to even a certain extent, younger millennials, they're not afraid to break the glass. They are very bold. They are yearning for intellectual stimulating work, and they refuse to just take orders. I'm sure you're seeing that too. They want to be. Second, people care about sustainability and the social impact. That is so important to the workforce. Right. And I think the third, and which is the most important, which is another thing that I would say we as Accenture are really big at, which is inclusion and diversity. Gone are the days when you would have an all-male board or a team without any ethnic diversity that closely resembles the fabric of our societies. Right. Now it is so important. Now, if we put those three things into the fabric of our culture, where we are allowing people to be creative, to break glass, to be bold. We are allowing them to have a social impact, and we are allowing them to have a very inclusive and diverse teams. As leaders, now suddenly we have set ourselves up for success. So I talked about what leaders need to do, and I talked about what leaders need to empower people to do, so it all comes together in a successful model.
It does indeed, and especially if there are qualities in place like vision and courage and detachment to some extent. What you're talking about is what has been written in the Indian scriptures thousands of years ago. That's what the Bhagavad Gita talks about when it speaks of detachment. Do not be too attached to what you see around yourself today, what you call reality. And I think this is a mistake a lot of leaders do, is that they embrace and fall in love with the status quo to the extent that they're so very afraid of letting it go. So thank you for bringing that up. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is you've risen to the top of the high-tech industry in North America and in the work that you're doing at the moment. And something interesting, I must tell the viewers here, you were my senior 1 year in school in Batala, Apna Zila Gurdaspur, RD Gosla. Although we did not get to spend a lot of time together because I was only there in that school for 1 year, somehow my parents wanted to make sure I studied in every single school of the city. I got a flavor of it. So we did not actually get a lot of time to spend together, but your career trajectory, Vikrant, is phenomenal and inspiring, and I'm sure a lot of youngsters listening to this conversation right now are going to be deeply inspired. Talk to us about your career journey, please, and also what are your rules for long-term career success?
Absolutely, Simar. And here is another fact that you may even not know. I was born in your grandmother's hospital, and your grandmother.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So I think before I go into my success journey, let me share a little bit, a few personal things. I've actually not been very open about it previously, but I think considering the times we are going through, I want to be open and share this. First of all, I was born very premature. I was very weak, and I was born out of a very high-risk pregnancy for my mother. And I can almost say that, my mother instilled this fighter spirit in me before I was even born. She was determined to make me strong. She was determined to make something out of me.
Maa di halla sheri sher bana dindi. That's the old song in Punjab.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Sherni
Right.
Sherpanandi. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. You know, so when I was younger, my parents got separated, and my mother, raised me in this small town Batala, by herself, and that gave me a resolve that failure was not an option. I did not want anyone to say that my mother did a poor job in raising me just because she had to do it all on her own. And times were very different now. I know these days it is more common, and women are stronger. And my mom is very strong, and I give her commendation. Whatever I am because of her. So starting with that, I would say hard work, perseverance, and persistence, they gave me the fuel to get me where I am today. I was very fortunate to be part of, work for leaders who groomed me, who coached me, mentored me, and made sure that my career is where it is today. Today I lead high-tech strategy practice in North America. I've been with Accenture more than 14 years. I've reinvented myself. And I continue to work with clients who value my advice, and in turn, I'm actually learning from them. At a personal front, I've been married for 18 years. My anniversary is coming up here in a couple of weeks. I have two handsome boys, 16 and 11. You talked about my running and all that. And some of these things that I have tried to explore. Like, I was not a runner. Growing up, I was not a runner. College, I was not a runner. A few years ago, I realized that was something that gave me peace and happiness, and that gave me focus. So you talk about reason for how am I successful?
Right. So it's only been a few years that you took up this passion for running. All right.
Exactly. But that gave me so much better focus, because when I run, I'm thinking, when I run in the morning, I'm already planning my day ahead, what's going to happen. I'm listening to music, I'm focused, and, when I get back my home and I run outside, whether it's cold or hot, I've run in negative 19 degrees Celsius temperature. I run when it's hot, but that gives me the focus. So I think that focus is very important in our life if you want to get somewhere. Having a strong, firm resolve, what you want to do. And I think what also comes in is that I believe in setting short-term goals. If I've run half marathons, I've never run a full marathon. To run half marathon, which is 13.1 miles, you run 1 mile at a time. It's like, okay, 1 mile done, another one done, another one done. And before you know it, you're done. If you kind of say, man, I have to run 13.1 miles, that's a lot of distance.
Yeah, it becomes overwhelming, right?
It becomes very overwhelming. So I encourage youngsters who are starting their career to set those goals where they can achieve those goals. They are agile in those goals, and then they are growing as through those goals. And they're tweaking. I think also other thing which is important is that you have to take pause, and you have to celebrate small successes.
Right. I so believe in that.
Many times what happens is, we get so caught up that chasing a goal that we miss some aspects of our personal life, whether it's family, friends, our own health. These things can coexist. Like, we say in the US, you can walk and chew gum. You can have a successful professional career and also have a very successful personal life. One of my mentors says, be the best at whatever you are. If you're a father, be the best father that's out there. If you're a husband, be the best husband that's out there. If you're a boss, be the best boss out there. So those are some of the things I have found to be very helpful in my career that has helped me get to where I am. The very long-winded answer to your question. Hopefully, I addressed what you.
Thank you. I thank you for being open and sharing your journey with us. I'm interested in the role of that you just mentioned, that your mentor taught you certain things, certain principles about life. I'm interested in knowing what role the mentors might have played on this journey. How are you giving it back, and also, how can young people find mentors, and how mid-level career professionals can mentor other people? A lot of organizations talk about this. They have it in their vision, mission statement. Mentorship is a powerful culture. But what enables it, and what stops it? What inhibits it?
Yeah, I think the first rule is many times people are just afraid to ask someone to be a mentor. I learned very early on in my career when I started my engineering that I need to be bold and ask someone to be my mentor, and I need to have multiple mentors. And I encourage everyone to have multiple mentors. And on the same token, I also mentor multiple people because, it's just like you said, in giving back. Mentors have played a very good key role in my career. What I have a board of directors. Just like an organization has a board of directors, I have my personal board of directors.
You have a personal board of directors. Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
And I always know at any given time that if I have a situation in my career, who are those board of directors and when do I reach out to them?
Right.
And I ask them to guide me, shepherd me through that decision making. And the other thing is, don't wait for a critical moment in your career to have a mentor. Have a mentor that you build and develop the relationship. Most of my mentors, I've had long-term relationship over the last several years. That does not mean I don't pick up new mentors. I pick up new mentors, but I maintain and nurture and invest in the relationships that I've had. And similarly, people that I mentor, same thing. I encourage them to do the same. I encourage them to make sure that they stay in touch and not just kind of come when they have a question, rather stay in touch so we can help each other out.
Right. Yeah, sometimes it's just a conversation, just a casual conversation about what's going on that can really uplift your mood. And that's not an actual exchange of knowledge or information there. That's just maybe psychological safety, maybe human connection, maybe all these things that we value a lot. But I think largely due to technology and how busy our lives are, we're missing out on those things, especially in the Indian context. I was speaking to this gentleman the other day, and we spoke about how mentorship, so-called this concept of mentorship, was an integral part of our culture, in the sense of sitting in villages. People used to gather together under the peepal tree, and they used to chat, and the elders used to be there giving their nuggets of proverbial wisdom passed down through stories and through other things, generation to generation. And now, since the demographics have changed, and we're moving more towards an urban landscape, that thing has suddenly disappeared, right? And there is a huge vacuum which I believe mentorship can fill in. So thank you for your input on that. That young people should not be afraid to seek out mentors. I'm reminded of a Steve Jobs story here, Vikrant. I think he narrated this in a video where he said when he was 12 or 14, he picked up the phone and called from the directory, found the number of Bill Hewitt, who was the owner of Hewlett Packard back then, and he needed something, and also he wanted an internship for the summer, and he got both the things. He got an internship plus the part that he was looking for. So a lot of people are afraid to ask, and I think the number one takeaway from your input here is don't be afraid to ask, and number two, build long-term relationships. Don't just pick up the phone and call when you're in trouble. Take out the time to nurture that relationship. So thank you for that. I want to pick your brain on a number of different issues because you're adding so much value here. Thank you, Vikrant. The next thing is, as you already mentioned about the changing landscape of work, about the impact of how machines might take over jobs which are dull, boring, repetitive, or dangerous, and human beings would be freed to do things that we do best. What is the top career advice you might, in terms of future-proofing yourself, preparing for the future? What are things youngsters should be working on today, which is perhaps not there in their curriculums, and what should they work upon today to ensure that when they enter the workforce, they're off for a flying start?
Yeah, I think the example I would start off with is that an athlete, before they go into a competition, they practice. And they do their warm-ups, they do their stretches, and then the competition starts, they are ready. So my advice is, first and foremost, is be willing to unlearn what you know and be willing to learn new things. So in other words, be willing to reinvent yourself every 2-3 years. Do a checkpoint with yourself. Have your board of directors, have your mentors, and do a check-in every 3 years and say,
I think that's worth repeating.
I have today.
Yeah. I think that's worth repeating. You said be prepared to unlearn what you know, and the second part was?
Do a check-in every 3 years that the skills you have, are they going to take you in the next, relevant for next 3 years, and learn the new skills that are there, because technology is evolving so fast. Things that are here today, in 2 or 3 years, they could be gone. So always have the pulse on the market. Read, as the more you read, the more informed you would be what's happening in the market, and use that as an informative index to get what the skills you want to do. If you're already in the workforce, talk to your supervisor. what you want to do. Most companies have those plans where you are setting out 2-3 year plan for your employees on what they want to do. Be proactive in that. This is what I want to do. I want to get to this level. These are the skills I want to do. This is the curriculum I want to enroll in. And I think that will help you be ready for your competition, which is always like changing, right? There is never one competition. Most athletes, they participate in multiple competition.
True.
And I think that's what I would say is most important for youngsters, that they need to continue to have that pulse and then bring that pulse into their let me give you my personal example. When I started my career, I was a supply chain professional.
Okay.
8 years ago or so, one of my mentors, she said, Vikrant, I'm going to challenge you. You need to reinvent yourself into a broader industry strategist.
Okay.
You have the capabilities, but why you are focused in just one function? And she gave me the guardrails. She gave me some other mentors who I could talk to and see what skills I needed to pick up in order to have my vision be broadened, whether it's around finance, whether it's around digital, whether it is around human resources, talent, and organization. And from that, my journey started, where I started to do new things every few years. Just 2-3 years ago, I was very focused on blockchain. Most recently, I've done some work in digital transformation. I'm starting to get some work in sustainability. That's where my clients are headed. So I'm learning myself. So learning never stops. Never say that I know everything and I don't need to learn more. That's why I said in the beginning, you need to be willing to unlearn what you know and relearn what's out there and have the pulse on the market.
That's so powerful, because it resonates with me in the sense that two things I'd like to dwell on. Number one is this unlearning part. A lot of people fall in love with their accomplishments and their previous successes and where they are in life, and they think that's it, and they don't want to let go of it, or they would run away from every challenge there is. What Carol Dweck calls the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. So after success brings in the fixed mindset, you say, okay, now I've achieved this, I'm here now, this is my territory, and I'm the master, so nobody come challenge it, right? So and the moment any challenge arises, I'm going to run away, I'm going to ignore it, I'm going to make sure I do everything within my power to make sure that challenge does not threaten me. Now, but here's the thing. We do not grow, as you rightly said, until we detach from that and unlearn it and start again as a beginner. I think I speak from experience here about this whole keynote speaking business. 2020, Feb 2020 was the last live event that I did, Vikrant, and my whole life changed. 12 years before this, there's only one model I knew, which is I pick up my bags, I go to a client location, I walk into a large conference room, I have my presentation ready, we have fun with people, we sing, we dance, we jump, we talk, we speak, people talk to each other, there's high fives, there's so many other things. There's actual physical contact, there is human connection, there's psychological connection, and so many other things. And then enter this new age of the whole virtual game, wherein I had to unlearn all of that and start again as a beginner. And I say to all my relatives and friends, I say it was 2007 for me all over again, because 2007 is when I started my journey. So now learning about cameras and lighting and acoustics and so many other things, and working on small details to make sure you have eye contact with the audience when you're speaking, to streaming softwares and so many other things. It's been a steep learning curve, but it would not have been possible if I was not able to unlearn. So I deeply connect to that. The second part, what I love about what you said is be your own learning and development department, right? Don't depend upon some external force. I love your concept of having your board of directors. I love your concept of pause every now and then and figure out where you are, where you want to go. So it's you're looking at yourself as an entity, as an organization, not just an employee, but also as a entity who's offering his or her service to the world at this point of time. So you need to do that thing with yourself too. That's so very powerful. Thank you for sharing that with us.
And let me add a third thing. Please. Never be complacent. Never be complacent, because when you become complacent, you are going to lose the game. I mean, we have, companies that were at the top of the world, they are no longer there. Someone came in and took over their business, and they couldn't respond. Similarly, in our personal lives as well, we got to always strive to do the best that is out there and not become complacent.
No, thank you. That's rightly said. Now, I want to know, we've talked about transformation, unlearning, career growth. and this is what you do for a living in terms of you've worked with 300 top level executives, helping them transform their businesses, direct bottom line impact. In fact, that is what Accenture excels in. Do you come across common traits, Vikrant, where, when you meet a C-level executive or you meet an individual or you walk into a company, you sense the culture, do you encounter common traits where you feel, here's going to be a successful transformation, or here there are a lot of bottlenecks? Do you sense that? And if yes, could you list them out for us? Where do you feel leaders excel at transforming? What are what factors, what things do leaders who excel at transforming and growing, what factors do they exhibit? And what are the others who fail to transform? What personality traits do they exhibit?
Yeah, so I think early on I talked about the qualities of the leader. Now let me talk a little bit of how leaders act and how that differentiates them from successful from non-successful ones.
Or transformational leaders, right?
Transformational leaders. So transformational leaders always lead from the heart.
Okay.
When there is a crisis, the hardest thing can be dealing with the fine points. And if the leaders are leading from heart and they are authentic, sincere, empathetic, compassionate, they will be good leaders. And when I see leaders like that, and I've had the fortune of working with some of those leaders in my career, especially in the last 1 year or so, more so, then I see that this company is going to be good. Leaders who put their mission first, those leaders are successful because they are able to triage the situation. They are able to stabilize the organization to meet the crisis. Leaders that aim for speed over elegance, those leaders can drive successful transformations.
Wow.
Because they take decisive decision with courage. Even if the information is imperfect, that is okay. Knowing that expediency is essential.
With a sense of urgency.
Who own the narrative. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, the sense of urgency I was talking about. The sense of urgency, the bias for execution, the moving towards action, right?
Bias towards action, exactly. Leaders that own the narrative, they seize the narrative at the outset. They're transparent about the current realities. So they don't ignore the current reality we are in, yet they paint the vision and the narrative that everyone can be rallied around and it can inspire. Those leaders are very successful. And I think the most important one is having a resilient and long-term view of the situation. Like you said in the beginning, it's darkest before the dawn. Situation is going to change. No 2 days are the same. So having that long-term view and making sure that people understand that as well in your organization, rallying them around that long-term view is important. So I feel that leaders who exhibit those traits always drive successful transformation. I think there is a factor that is underpinning all this, which is around change management and communication.
True.
And transparency and being very crystal clear about the vision and mission of the organization. It's super important for a successful organization. I will give you
so people know what's going on. So people know what's really going on, exactly. Right?
People know exactly what's going on. I will give you an example of our own CEO, Julie Sweet, who I am a big fan of. She's a great leader. Ever since she has taken over the CEO, she has ensured all her leaders, all her managing directors, they understand what we need to do as a company to stay relevant to our clients and to the societies, to our communities we are in.
Okay.
So relevance to our clients and our communities. That's been the vision she has rallied everyone around. Now, by doing that, she has ensured that everyone in the company, we have 540,000 employees. All of us are headed in the right direction. Because doing it any other way would be highly improbable for large companies.
Right, because that's a moment when everybody begins to sort of rowing in their own direction and pulling against each other at times, and somebody needs to come in, as you said, with that narrative, with that story, with that vision, bold, empowering, engaging, inspiring vision for the future, which makes sense to everybody at a practical day-to-day level. How do what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, how did that connect with the big picture? I believe people often need to see this. When they don't see how their day-to-day work connects with the big picture of the organization, that's when disengagement begins to kick in. So I think what you said is really important, owning the narrative so as to weave in where the vision wants to take this group to, where the leader wants to take this group towards, and everybody knows so that they are working towards it in that same direction. Did you want to add something to that? Leaders who are able to transform and those who don't?
That's correct. I mean, those leaders who exhibit those traits absolutely are driving transformation of their organization. And those who are not, definitely, you see they're a little slow to adapt.
What common factors do you see in cultures or leaders who are slow to adapt? The resistance to change. Where does it stem from? Where is it coming from, and how do you tackle it?
Yeah, I think what I have observed is that sometimes leaders, and I'm not talking about at the C level, I'm talking about, like, as you cascade down in the organization, sometimes leaders get in their own way. They don't empower their people. They don't talk, they talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. And showing people, through their actions is important. When leaders don't do that, it's very visible that there is a concept of fail fast that is permeated through the organization. But when people fail, they are not given the opportunity to do it, try it again.
They're punished. They're punished then, right? So the psychological safety is not there. So, I read this article. I read this article about innovation at Google, and the number one factor that they find out in their research was psychological safety. If I fail, now my company is asking me to fail. My vision, mission statement. There's posters everywhere. There's slogans everywhere. Fail forward, fail fast, etc., etc. But if I fail, I know I'm in a dangerous spot. I might lose my job. I'll be held accountable, etc., etc. So if that psychological safety is missing, this becomes just another saying on the wall, just another hollow, meaningless statement which is written and spoken about but is not practiced. So I'm glad you mentioned that, the lack of psychological safety, the lack of empowerment, the lack of engagement, those are the factors. So I hope everybody who's tuning in to this conversation right now, you can pause and self-reflect. Are you open to change or not? Because change, it's always said we're living in a VUCA world now more than ever before, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. And with COVID-19 kicking in, the world underwent through a huge change. Businesses suffered left, right, and center. Many closed down, many were not able to recover. Vikrant, you lead a large team yourself, and how have you been able to engage and inspire and pull these people together during these very difficult times of work from home and Zoom fatigue and so many other things?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that I've done. First of all, rallying the team against a common vision that we have. That has been very helpful. Making sure that when I engage with my team, I engage with them with empathy. I engage with them at a personal level, and make sure I understand the situation they are in, rather than just be tone deaf to that. So that emotional intelligence aspect has come in. The second thing is mental and physical wellness is very important, and mental wellness is more so on the top of most of the CXOs today than it ever was before the pandemic hit.
Right.
So acknowledging that we are all fighting our own battles and we are all in different stressful situations, and allowing people to de-stress. So to give you an example, I've been running for the last few years, but when I started, last year to kind of during the pandemic get my runs, I would set a target that I'm going to go run before the sunrise and go by the lake and capture the sunrise. And I would come back and I'll share that picture with my team. Say,
oh, wow.
This is what I did. And then I will encourage them to share what they did that morning that motivated them. And that certainly get people, going, and that rallies people around that, yes, here is something I look forward to. So kind of showing through that leadership, my own personal stories, and then also the mental wellness, that is an issue. There is stress, in our personal lives as well as work lives because of this. The boundaries are blurred between the work and home. You roll out of bed and you're in the office, and you roll back into the bed and you're home. And making sure that you set some boundaries, encouraging team members to set those boundaries, whether it is to take time off for personal wellness, whether it is to take, block your calendar to have dinner with the family. Like me personally, we started a few things as a family. We said we're going to pray together every evening after dinner.
Nice.
We're going to have dinner together, and then we're going to pray together. And that creates a bond. And sharing those examples with the team, that this is how I am managing my balance of my personal and physical wellness, that's how I've motivated my team. And when you share that, when you're open, when you're vulnerable to your team, people understand that we're all fighting the same challenges.
Right.
And
right.
then they can recognize and realize that the situation they are in as well, and then respond when you rally them against a common vision.
Mm-hmm. And all it takes is empathy, all it takes is creativity. As you said, the idea that you came up with did not cost a lot of money, did not involve any additional resources. It was just creative thinking on your part as a leader. Say, hey, what can I do to engage these people, to connect them with each other so that they get this feeling that they're not alone during this very challenging time. And I love the concept of the family praying together. They say the family that prays together stays together, and that's a wonderful metaphor. So I think in essence, I like the part about the boundaries, because as you rightly said, they've blurred. It was trending on LinkedIn some time back, this whole concept of the fake commute. So people who desperately complained about their commutes earlier suddenly now started missing their work commute because it disconnected them with the household. They would get their coffee or be in the metro or do something, get to work, and although they were complaining about it earlier, that was the number one sore point for many people earlier, but now suddenly they miss it because that disconnection from the home environment into the workplace was not happening anymore. So I think one profound lesson there for every single one of us: value what you have, please. So if you are at home right now and it's the work from home scenario, and I know the boundaries are blurred and it gets difficult and tests your patience and so many other things happening, and you're busy on a very important conference call and somebody's shouting or yelling or doing the dishes or whatever, but value this time, because tomorrow when things get back to normal, you probably might miss this the most, and you might do fake work from home scenarios just like people are doing fake commutes right now. So human beings, we don't value what we have at the moment. We always long and yearn for something other than what is present at the moment. So thanks for sharing your personal experiences there, Vikrant.
And Simar, here's another thing that has come out in the pandemic: the humane side of the work.
Right.
A year ago, let's say 18 months ago, if you were on a call and someone's child walked into the frame, people will raise eyebrows. Today, it is very acceptable to have a child or a spouse or a pet walking into the frame, because the boundaries have blurred. And I think
you're at home, right?
We are home, exactly. But as we emerge back from this pandemic, I think that humane side is what I personally believe is going to stay.
It should stay.
People are going to be more accepting of each other's situations, and and I think that would be probably one positive thing coming out of this.
Huge,
that people will acknowledge.
I completely agree with that, because now leaders will start looking at their employees not just as these smartly dressed bodies that walk into the workplace every day, but also people who have families, who have issues, who have dishes to do, got rents to pay, and so many. The whole picture. You see now the whole picture, and I hope that stays with leaders and decision makers, because that will bring in so much more empathy into decision making and how we work across the world. It's been an interesting conversation here, Vikrant. I thank you so very much for sparing so much of your valuable time. We talked about multiple things, about leadership, about empathy, about change and transformation, and I'm sure it's been a great value add to anybody who's listening right now. In parting, a large chunk of our audience, especially on YouTube, is from the Indian subcontinent, and they're in the age bracket of 18 to 24. Young, ambitious, bright, hardworking, intelligent kids from across the Indian subcontinent. That's India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal. So these are people who are aspiring to do something in their lives, and they're working very hard towards it. But sometimes all that they miss is the right direction, the right inputs. What would you like to say to this audience from your own personal experience, to these young, eager group of folks?
Yeah, I would say that be patient. Career is a marathon. It's not a sprint. I used to be impatient when I was younger. I still am impatient, but I'm trying to learn. And
so finding the right balance is perhaps is that what you're talking? Finding the right balance between patience and impatience.
Finding the right balance, because you have to the right to be ambitious. You have to be bold. You have to break glass. But understand if things are not happening at the pace you want them to happen, don't get frustrated.
Right.
Understand that to turn a ship, it takes takes much longer than to just turn a car or a motorcycle.
Indeed,
so
indeed.
Be prepared for that. I also say that learn a lot. Some of the youngsters are going to join organizations here soon. Those who are in college, decide what you want to do. Pick a field. Take a look at the organizations that you want to be part of. Learn everything about those organizations. Have an informed perspective. If these companies are actually selling a product, be informed about the product, what that product is. Think about how you can make the difference when you go on the other side. Mm-hmm. And I would say that when you join the organization, be open to learn. As I said before, be open to unlearn what you have learned. Mm-hmm. Be bold, share your views, speak up, and have fun along the way. Don't get so set on the goals that you put your blinders on and you miss the beautiful scenery that is around. Enjoy on the way as well. Everything needs to happen at the same time, personal development as well as professional development.
So a couple of lines in Urdu before we say goodbye. कि जिंदगी की असली उड़ान अभी बाकी है. जिंदगी की असली उड़ान अभी बाकी है. जिंदगी के कई और इम्तिहान अभी बाकी हैं. अभी तो नापी है मुट्ठी भर ज़मीं हमने. आगे सारा आसमान अभी बाकी है. आगे सारा आसमान अभी बाकी है. This is what emerged to my mind after listening to your powerful story, Vikrant. I feel that sense of that balance between patience and impatience is still there with the sparkle in your eyes, and as you talk about your future, I can sense it. And thank you so very much once again for taking out the time to speak to us on these very important subjects. I wish you all the best for everything that lies ahead of you. Thank you.
Simar, thank you so much for having me. And if I may say something as well,
please.
My personal ethos is hard work, loyalty, and commitment. Mm-hmm. And my favorite line by Robert Frost is, the woods are lovely, dark, and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. And miles to go before I sleep.
Wow, you said exactly. Two poets, perhaps cultures apart, centuries apart, said about exactly the same thing in two different languages. It's been a wonderful conversation here today, Vikrant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.